Cole Harrington didn't expect to come home early that night. The charity gala had ended sooner than expected. A dull affair filled with polite smiles, empty conversations, and the hollow clinking of champagne glasses. He had been a phantom at his own table, an island of stillness in a sea of noise. After signing a six-figure check for a children's hospital, he had slipped away without a word. It was just after midnight when the elevator doors whispered open on the penthouse floor. Cole stepped into the silent expanse of his home. He loosened his tie, the fabric feeling like a noose around his neck. The grand hall stretched out before him, a mausoleum of polished marble and expensive art. He craved quiet, a moment to himself before he collapsed into a bed that hadn't felt his weight in 4 days. He barely made it past the hallway before a shadow moved behind him. A hand, small and surprisingly strong, clamped over his mouth. Cole froze. His mind screamed, his body tensed, and his hand instinctively shot to the pocket where he kept his phone. Before he could react, a voice, a mere breath against his ear, whispered with a desperate urgency that cut through his fear. "Don't say word." The voice was female, trembling and familiar. His pulse, which had been racing, slowed just enough for him to register it. Amara, the new maid, hired 2 weeks ago after the last one vanished without notice. He had barely spoken to her. He hadn't even looked her in the eye. Yet here she was, her arm a firm lock around his chest, her breath a shaking gust against his neck. Slowly, she removed her hand. "What the hell?" he whispered, spinning around. "Please," she pleaded, her eyes wide with a fear he hadn't seen on a human face in years. "Lower your voice." Cole took a step back, his confusion warring with his anger. She was still in her crisp black uniform, the white apron tied neatly at her waist. But her face was different. The composed, professional mask was gone. Her eyes were red, raw, and wet, like she had been holding back tears for hours. "You better have a reason for this," he said flatly, his voice low and dangerous. "I do." She cut him off, her own voice cracking. "But it's not one I should have had to carry alone." He stared at her, the words not making sense. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer right away. She turned her head, her gaze drifting toward the darkened hallway leading to the bedrooms. "Your son," she said, her voice dropping even lower. "Does he sleepwalk?" That question caught Cole completely off guard. He had no idea. "What? He's been doing it every night since you left on your last trip?" she said, her tone a mix of exhaustion and weary resignation. "Always around this time. I've been staying late, watching him, walking with him, guiding him back to bed." Cole's harsh exterior began to soften, a crack appearing in the facade. "I didn't know," he said, the words barely audible. "No one told me." "Because no one else saw it?" she replied, her voice filled with a hint of sorrow. "The nanny leaves at 6. The housekeeper comes in the morning." She paused, her eyes meeting his. "I stay late after my shift to make sure he's safe." "You're not paid for that," he said, the flat statement hiding a rush of emotion. "I know," she said simply. Cole opened his mouth, then closed it. The air in the hallway felt heavier, thick with the weight of everything he hadn't asked. All the things he had delegated, had paid for, but hadn't been present for. "He talks in his sleep," she said, her voice softer now. "Sometimes he says your name. Sometimes he cries." Cole's jaw clenched. The thought of his son, alone and crying out for him in the darkness, hit him like a physical blow. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, the words a desperate plea. "Because I didn't know if it mattered to you," she said. The line landed squarely in the center of his chest. It was a truth so sharp, so painful, he had to look away. He had built this empire for his son, but had he built a home? "I care about my son," he said quietly, looking back at her. "I believe that," she replied. "But children don't feel belief. They feel presence." Cole had no response. She continued, her voice steadier. "Tonight," he walked right past the stairwell. His eyes were open, but he wasn't awake. "I stopped him before he reached the edge." Cole's heart sank, a cold, sickening lurch. The grand, open staircase was his favorite architectural feature. It was also a 3-story drop. I caught him just in time, she said. But I couldn't carry him, so I just stayed with him. And when I heard the elevator, I panicked. I thought if you came in loud, you'd startle him. He's fragile when he's like that. That's why I had to make you quiet. That's why I had to cover your mouth. He sat down heavily on the edge of the hallway bench, his expensive suit stiff against the cool leather. Amara stepped closer, her tired eyes watching him. I know I crossed a line, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I shouldn't have touched you like that. Cole looked up at her, the anger completely gone. You were trying to protect my son, he said. I should have thanked you. She lowered her gaze. I didn't do it for thanks. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. You said something earlier about carrying this alone. She hesitated, her gaze fixed on a spot on the marble floor. I'm used to it, she finally said. Cole looked at her again, really looked at her this time. She was young, maybe mid-20s, too young to have eyes that tired. Her hands, calloused from years of work, were steady now from the effort of holding in so much fear. I know I'm just the maid, she said softly, but that little boy, he looks at me like I'm something more, and I couldn't ignore that. You're not just the maid, he said. She nodded, but a sad, weary smile touched her lips. I know, she said. He needs a mother, but for now, he has me. A new emotion, a wave of profound shame, washed over Cole. Why didn't you leave it to the nanny? He asked, the question a confession. Amara looked away. The nanny comes in late, leaves early, says she's not a babysitter. She says he'll grow out of it. Cole closed his eyes, a sharp intake of breath as the pieces clicked into place. Everything he had missed was clearer now. All the long hours, the business trips, the delegating of love like it was an item on an expense report. He had built a life of convenience, but he had created a world of emotional neglect. I thought I was doing the right thing, he said, his voice raw. Working hard, building something for him. Amara spoke softly, without judgment. A child doesn't need a future more than he needs his present. Cole looked at her as if she had told him a secret he wasn't ready to hear. And just then, soft footsteps sounded from around the corner. They both turned. Nolan stood there, his son, barefoot, eyes heavy with sleep. Daddy! Cole rose to his feet. I'm here, buddy. Amara moved slowly to the side. Walk slowly. No sudden movements. Cole knelt and opened his arms. Nolan stumbled into him, his small body a perfect fit. I was looking for you, the boy mumbled, burying his face in his father's chest. I'm here now, Cole said, his voice cracking. He held his son tight, a promise in his arms he meant for the first time in a very long time. He held Nolan close, his arms tightening as the boy breathed quietly against his shoulder. He hadn't realized how small Nolan still was, how his frame fit so easily into his arms. It had been weeks since they had sat like this, maybe longer. Now, his son clung to him, a small anchor in his grand, empty life. Amara stood back, a silent guardian in the dim light. She didn't try to insert herself. She never had. Cole finally looked up, his voice raw with emotion. How many times has he done this? Since I started, 7 times, she answered softly. Always after midnight, always pacing like he's looking for someone. It's like his body remembers what his heart doesn't understand. Cole lowered his face into Nolan's soft hair. He thinks I left him, he whispered. I think he just misses you, Amara said. That's not the same. She walked past them and gently straightened one of the photos on the wall. It was an old one of Cole and Nolan at the beach, both of them smiling, a picture from a different, simpler life. You know, she said, her back to him. When I was little, my mom used to work nights, long shifts, sometimes 2 jobs. I'd wait up for her even though she told me not to. I'd fall asleep right by the door, just to feel close when she came in. Cole listened, still kneeling, holding his son. I didn't need gifts, she continued. I just needed her voice, her presence, a moment of her eyes meeting mine. That was enough to keep me going another day. She turned back to face him, a serious expression on her face. Nolan's still waiting at that door, Mr. Harrington, even if it's not a physical one. He nodded slowly, cradling Nolan tighter. I thought giving him everything would make up for not being around, he said, the words a heavy burden. Amara took a seat across from him on the hallway bench. Love isn't a delivery service. It's not something you drop off on holidays and birthdays. It's being there in the middle of the night when they forget their own name, but remember your warmth. She wasn't preaching. She was simply stating what she knew to be true. And Cole, for once, didn't feel defensive. He felt humbled. Nolan stirred. His voice was faint. Is it morning? Not yet, buddy, Cole whispered. Still nighttime. You're okay. Amara was here. Nolan mumbled without opening his eyes. She was holding my hand. Cole looked across at her again, a silent gratitude in his eyes. You've done more for him in 2 weeks than I have in 2 months. She shook her head. You don't need to say that. I do, he insisted. Because it's true. Amara stood slowly. I'll make some tea. You both need something warm. As she walked toward the kitchen, Cole carried Nolan back to his room, gently laying him down beneath the soft blue covers. The boy sighed in his sleep, turning toward the window. Cole sat beside him, brushing his fingers through his son's hair. When he returned to the kitchen, Amara had already laid out 2 mugs. She was rinsing something at the sink. The lights were low, the whole penthouse quiet, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. He stood beside her. I'd like to keep you on, he said. She didn't look up. That's your choice. Not just as a maid. That made her pause. He continued, I want someone in this house who sees him the way you do, who cares about him as a person, not just a routine. She turned to face him, a hint of a challenge in her eyes. You don't need to hire love. You just need to be present. I want to learn, he said simply. That silenced her. She saw the truth in his face. Not desperation, not guilt, just sincerity. A father trying to begin again. After a long moment, she nodded. Then start by sitting with him every morning, she said. Even if it's just 10 minutes, let that be the first thing he sees before school. He smiled faintly. And pancakes. She finally allowed a soft grin. Banana with a little cinnamon. It's the only way he eats them. They sat together at the kitchen table, sipping quietly. The city beyond the window still sparkled with its endless noise. But inside this home, things felt still and safe. For the first time in years, Amara stood to leave. She reached for her coat. Same time tomorrow? He asked. Earlier if you can. She smiled again. And just before walking out the door, she said, he doesn't need a hero. He just needs his dad. With that, she stepped into the quiet hallway. Cole locked the door gently behind her, turned, and looked toward his son's room. For once, he didn't feel like a stranger in his own house. He felt like a father returning home. If the story moved you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tales that explore the unexpected connections between people. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We love hearing from our community around the world.